Hello, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Laura, and this is the Pair Entrepreneurs Club podcast, a weekly show to help you navigate the demands of being a working parent.
We will share lots of practical ideas, hints and tips, and our own and others' experiences with juggling work, family, health and finances. Above all, we want to help you find your purpose, define your identity, and banish any confidence gremlins that might be holding you back from the life you dream of. No matter whether you have children or not, there will be something here for you. Let's get started. Thanks for joining this week's podcast. And today I'm joined by Isabelle, and Isabelle's from IM Career Self Actualisation. So Isabelle, is it okay just to hand over to you initially just to explain a little bit about your career history and how you've got to setting up your business?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I'm so excited to be connected all halfway across the globe and to have that. So thanks, Michelle. And just very briefly about my background. I was born in Croatia. I grew up in Switzerland, and I started my banking apprenticeship in Switzerland, which is quite a different education model, in that particular country, which is really, really fantastic because as a young person, you basically get to work and study at the same time across over 200 industries. You can, select your preferred choice. And I went into banking, and basically for 3 years, you study and work at the same time. Your employer sponsors your education, and you also learn quite a nice salary actually for that age. And when you finish, you can basically then make your own choices whether you want to continue studying, whether you want to work full time, change industry. You can make up your mind. You're 20 years old and financially quite independent, which is really, really great. So anyway, I continue working at ABN AMRO for the next couple of years, and then I wanted to go live and work in London. And they said, no, you're too junior, too inexperienced. And so anyway, I was looking for roles from Zurich in London, and ended up at Deutsche Bank London, where I was in total for 10 years, looking after clients in Southeast Europe and Israel, and then went to do different strategic work. And then that led me to Hong Kong. The same thing over here. I was then also sent down to Mauritius to in a project to get people to do what they don't want to do, because the bank was de-risking several locations, and then after that I went to work for Bank of America for a while, and then at some stage we departed ways amicably. And so since then I've been on this really amazing transformative journey. So basically I've been studying innovation and design thinking. I have volunteered at a local NGO, which basically helps to bring brand new goods which are donated by all kinds of companies and retailers. So essentially, bringing goods to poor countries, to countries in disaster relief. It's so fulfilling just to be doing physical work, packing up boxes and filling up containers. And I'm personally also one of the SteerCo members at Women in Finance Asia, career development and mentoring. And through that, I'm mentoring several people across the finance industry. I've also been working or been a strategic advisor to Time Auction. And Time Auction is a local Hong Kong charity that promotes volunteerism. And so obviously through that engagement, it's also helping charities with things like fundraising, but also mentoring people. And I've put together 22 books, photography books in a historical context. It's basically books or experiences of all kinds of travels, like climbing the Machu Picchu or cycling through Cambodia and Vietnam, doing these Trans-Siberian with friends and stuff like that. And so I have always been very passionate about coaching. First of all, I have been a very grateful recipient of different kinds of coaching, which have definitely helped me to grow, to get the next promotion, to pick myself up after a difficult experience in life. And I feel very, very passionate the same way to empower other people, because all in all, it's a crazy world, regardless how you look at it, and we all need to support each other one way and another.
Absolutely. And I think that's for me, that's the power of coaching, isn't it? To kind of have that sounding board and having someone to hold you to account, and particularly if you're going through those challenging transitional points. So if you don't mind me just pushing on that door a little bit, what kind of big
transitions have you gone through? Because obviously leaving the finance sector, I guess, is one of those. But what other struggles have you had along your career journey?
So I would definitely say, I mean, do you know what? Of course, people always associate the finance industry, like, we've been super ruthless and all of that. But then also when you speak to other friends in other industries, I mean, it's not like, it's paved with sugar and honey, right? And I think I would definitely say, so where coaching has been completely transformative is actually the first time when I went to see a coach was actually in 2012. I went over to Germany because when I was in Zurich visiting my family, I always go to the main bookstore, and I saw this book that was basically like, if you were translated one-to-one, it's called The Career Maker Book. And so that lady, what she wrote in 2009, how the whole marketplace and careers and how people land roles is going to change. I mean, you can almost say that woman was a prophet.
Yeah.
Yes, and so when I read that book, I thought to myself, I'm gonna just book myself a long weekend, fly over to Hamburg, and she really taught me how to. First of all, she taught me certain things about myself through different kinds of psychological tests, and how they say, know thyself, right? And she also taught me how to dosage, the office politics here and there, because especially when you're young in your formative years, you get a lot of beating in the corporate world. And of course, you're clueless, you need to learn. And so, that was very, very important. It doesn't mean you have to become very phony. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden you become a politician in the office. But that sort of dosaging, that was instrumental to also me landing my, next promotion. And then the next year when I was sent to a talent program, to participate in a talent program, we were working together with communications coaches. And so one of the sessions, I went up to the coach that we had, and I said, hey, would you be able to coach me one-on-one? And yes, the rest is history. And then, when I went into different roles, I also engaged a business coach to work together on some strategies. And so, all in all, it can be really, really transformative. And I think it's very important to, have somebody like that.
Absolutely. And obviously, having lived in different continents and countries, have you found a difference in the appetite for coaching in different countries?
Yeah, so I would definitely say that in Asia, it's not what we discussed earlier. Like in the States, everybody has a coach, right? And you listen to some of these entrepreneurs, they literally have 5 to 10 coaches in every single aspect of their life. And so I would say that it is definitely something where people need to sort of, be trained or persuaded that actually, this is very, very important, because I think, especially in Asia, people are very used to just simply obeying authority, and you do as you're told, in the workplace, you respect what you're being instructed to do. And however, I'm seeing, of course, especially the younger generation, right? They are very, very fond of learning. They take learning very, very seriously. So, if there's somebody in the workplace who offers themselves up to be a mentor, and they have let's say a diverse background, these guys are very, very willing to, take that on, to really, really embrace that. And really, really try to, implement also what they're being taught. And the wonderful thing about, coming from the West to the East is that, again, you also have to sort of, step back. You cannot try to teach people the same stuff that, let's say, I would try to teach somebody in the UK or in the US, right? Because you always have to bear in mind that it's a different culture. But of course, also Asia is not Asia, right? Being Japanese is not the same like being a Hong Konger. It's not the same thing like being a Singaporean or being an Indian, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty with, very, very diverse continent.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously you recognise that, and you recognise the difference in the generational shifts as well. And I think for me, it's also an element post-COVID, isn't it, about people wanting that support and that kind of dialogue with individuals. I mean, I think from the conversations we've had with people, sometimes just actually working remotely, it's quite lonely and isolating, and that's never corporate role or whether you're self-employed, actually not having that somebody to kind of hold you to account and have that sounding board is sometimes a challenge. So for you, I think you've got a fascinating background, and obviously moving from that corporate piece, what was that deal breaker for you not to go back? Because I imagine you were inundated with offers. You sound like you've got some talented positions, you've worked for some of the major players in the finance sector. How come you didn't kind of just go, do you know what, I'm going to take that step back and do something that's comfortable and normal to me? What kind of drove you to say, no, I want to do this, I want to run my own business?
Yeah, it is. I would definitely say, again, just like I think, again, I thought this is just me, but I'm what I've been hearing a lot from, whether it's young professionals or people with like literally 25 years of work experience, is really there's a lot of sort of, as I call it, lots of like busy projects that people are inundated by, and at the same time they're not feeling it. They're not sort of going like, oh my goodness, this is so amazing, like I may have to work 12 hours every day for the next 8 months, but I'm super excited about this. And it's very, very much a lot of people feel like they're just on autopilot, right? And so I feel sort of taking a step back and just being involved in a lot of different things, which is actually upskilling. And what I found also, for example, very, very even for me, a challenge is actually when I am working together with these young professionals in terms of like advising them, but because we're not now in the same company, because remember, like I said before, I've been mentoring people for the last like 10 years, but everybody was always in the same company. But now doing that, where I don't know the office politics, I don't know their manager, or I don't know the challenges of that firm or so, that also is something where you really have to, take a step back and really work harder, in your brain, so to speak, of really listening where their problems are and how you can help them. And all of these things have been a really, really nice challenge, right? They have been a challenge in the sense that, it's a beautiful challenge to have, right? And I think if I had gone back like 6 months, even a year, after I left, I don't think that I would have had the time to really, like process all of this and also, work on this again, sort of going one level deeper down in terms of what I'm good at and what I don't like, so just like writing of the books and things like that, because even that I enjoy writing, but it's not just, if you want to write something in a more let's say more elaborate style, that's just not the same kind of writing than let me just send a friend an email and tell them what I did last weekend, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So writing a book's not on your to-do list. What else is what do you want to do with the future of the business? What's your sort of next 3 to 5 year plan? Are you going to go with the
Yeah, I definitely want to do some further education and diplomas. I've actually been just even like yesterday sitting down and exploring some platforms. There is one like institute also in the States, in California, and they basically offer neuroscience-based coaching. And that's something that I'm very, very interested in, right? Because of course, so many things we do based on how we are programmed, right? And how do we unwire these wires? And this is definitely something that I want to do, and just continue carving out that niche and working together, in particular, with young professionals and of course even like seasoned professionals, right? Because for them things are not easy either, right? After many years, being sort of, let's say, used to a particular environment, and maybe you get thrown out of that, or there's constantly restructuring. There is no get stability anymore, right? I think that, yeah, in particular, the educational piece and just listening what is actually happening in the market.
Absolutely, that transformational piece is massive, isn't it? Particularly within the finance sector that you've come from. It's an evolving sector, and as you say, the exec team are having challenges that they've probably never faced in their careers.
Exactly. Yeah, and you know what? But not necessarily even in finance industry. Like my mom works in the for a very prestigious hotel in Switzerland, or a friend of mine who works for a cafe, and people are facing very, very similar challenges. Like in different kinds of contracts people are getting all of a sudden, and in lots of restructuring, and you hear that even from friends like in the retail sector, and yeah, there's a lot of just changes happening, and people don't know like where this is all leading.
Absolutely, yeah. It's kind of uncertain times, isn't it? I think we spoke before we had our brief conversation about the fact that we both worked through the recession, but actually probably COVID is probably has created a lot more of a change and transformational piece, and it's just continuing, isn't it? There's the lag that's happening, and the way we approach our coaching styles to those individuals and those set of expectations that people have are so different than what they were 5 years ago. People want things and they also want it now. We live in a high-paced consumer environment, don't we? So this, certainly something Laura and I talk about with our business. We're getting patient because we want things to happen overnight. Sometimes, you actually need that coach yourself to say, look, be realistic, do that coaching together and actually sit down and say, this is not realistic. We've got to kind of work through it. But it's that consumer environment we've got. You can order something and it's here the next day. And that's the environment we live and work in, isn't it? So we want those things to happen and happen quickly.
Yeah. And I would also say what I'm, seeing more and more as well, especially again, with the young professionals to sort of feel again, like, is this even making sense? Like, let's just see what happens, in this role. If I don't like it, I'm just going to go somewhere else, try. And it's not actually because people don't want to learn and be disciplined or work, longer hours or anything like that. It's really people are missing the purpose. And what I'm picking up as well, especially like with people sort of in their, mid to late 20s, early 30s, is that more and more are just looking for that purpose in other sort of, let's say, you can call it side hustles, but some of them are really trying to actually make a business out of that. I'm seeing things like one of my clients, or coaching clients. She's also, for example, somebody she wants to, she's getting different kinds of education in like certifications for yoga, for Pilates, for nutrition. Another one is setting up a startup with a friend. Lots of stuff like that happening. Yeah.
Absolutely. We've seen lots of people setting up those side hustles, and I call them the hobby jobs. Some people had hobbies. Yeah, and then they've actually become, not to dispel what they want to do with them, but actually they are passion pieces, the things that people have got an interest in. And I've seen actually life, is relatively too short and precious. And so why work for somebody else in a corporate environment? And kind of, as you say, that sense of purpose has kind of shifted. So actually do something myself, control it. It was interesting when you said about the neurolinguistics, because both myself and Laura are NLP coaches, and for us it's always about that map of the world, and I think that has changed quite significant for a lot of people. Those drivers and motivators are so different than what they were 3 or 4 years ago as well. I know for myself, not just by becoming a mum during that period, but actually just money's less important for me. It's about lifestyle and where I live and the quality of life that I've got. Rewind 10 years ago when I was living in London, the pace that was important for me then, but my drivers and motivators have shifted quite significantly. So if you were to give advice to your 18-year-old self, because obviously the education system in Switzerland is fantastic, isn't it? And it sounds like they set you in such good stead to understand the working world against education, whereas unfortunately in the UK it's kind of secondary. It's kind of going through the academic route. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
With or without the apprenticeship?
I suppose it's more about that career piece around, would you kind of make the same career choices, or was it kind of those sliding door opportunities where things arose that led you into paths? Would you your 18-year-old do something different?
I mean, back then when I was looking for apprenticeships, in Switzerland, it wasn't that easy at all, because obviously, like 25 years ago, the sort of, let's say cultural attitude in terms of, let's say, foreign nationals, was quite different, which obviously, these days is absolutely, not a topic at all. So, it wasn't actually, that easy, right? But I've always wanted to sort of, get into banking, because I always wanted to either go into banking or be a psychologist. And banking is ultimately a people's business, right? Not because I wanted to smash out spreadsheets. That's something for me anyway. But I would definitely say, so if I was to give myself, as an 18-year-old, any kind of advice, is definitely, obviously, especially like in the formative years of your 20s, not to take everything personally, because I took a lot, like I said, when you get the beating, I just took it very personally, right? Because I think also, learning from a young age to sort of have that filter. So when you get criticized in the workplace, really understand, okay, which are really the things that I need to work on and really improve, and how can I make proactive steps to achieve that, and what is the other stuff, which is just, I don't know, the ranting of a boss who's having a bad day or something like that, right? I think that's really, really crucial. And then the other part is also start saving and investing as soon as you can. I mean, even if it's like, even if you're 18 years old and you can only save £10, because how the importance of accumulated interest. And when you're 18, when you're 25, you think you're going to be living forever, but it's not the case. Time goes by super fast. So I would definitely say these two things.
Yeah, and we hear that a lot from people who actually want to set their own businesses up. It's about affordability and not having that kind of comfort, or actually having a plan where they want their career to end earlier and have that early retirement, but financially they're not in that position. So that's fantastic advice. I wish I'd taken that advice as well, because I'm in that situation. I like to buy the finer things when I've got the money in my bank. But yeah, I think it does impact on the choices that you then make from a career perspective quite significantly, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, totally.
And with regards to sort of the coaching community, so our listeners, mostly probably demographic would be kind of more our ages, mid-30s, 40-year-olds. What advice would you give to them? So if they were in a job that they weren't particularly enjoying and thinking about a transition, what advice would you give to them?
I would definitely say that there's kind of like two different things, right? What are you really good at and what are you passionate about, right? Because I think, both of these are just as important, right? Because, I can be passionate about, producing these photography books, but that's not going to pay my bills, right? So I think that is really, really important. And also, knowing yourself really, really well, right? I mean, some of the roles that I have done, I thought, okay, I'm just going to go into that role. I want to really, be really good at, hammering out spreadsheets. I'm not saying like I want to become some kind of master doing that, but like really become really good. And I just simply realized that this is just nothing for me. It's like I've really had so much admiration for my bosses who were so good with like telling stories with numbers, and I really, really wanted to do the same thing or achieve the same thing, or at least half as good. But then I just realized that my heart is not in it, right? Like I like analyzing a spreadsheet over like maybe 2 or 3 hours, but I just simply get bored and I switch off, right? And that sort of thing is really, really important. Again, knowing yourself, and also not try to, how shall I say this? I think when we talk about copying what other people do or looking over there, I want to do the same thing because that looks fancy. They're doing this so well. We attribute that very often with sort of teenagers or people in their 20s, but I've really learned no, people can do this well into their 40s or even 50s. And I think that's something that's really, really, I don't know, I would almost say dangerous. Yeah. Because you're constantly trying to catch up with, I don't know, what society expects or what your circle are doing or whatever close friend that you've known for the last 20 years has been really, really good at. And that is something that it will never work.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. This career conformity and kind of living up to social norms. It's
right.
You might get told by a career advisor at school when you're 16 you're going to be good at this, and then actually mum and dad do this or cousins do this, and you fall into things not necessarily because it's what you want to do, but you also think, I think we were talking about it briefly earlier, with the perception from family members as well, just the little comments that are passed at life transitional points are quite incredibly unhelpful. And I think if you've not got that robustness and that confidence to kind of think, actually, I'm going to dismiss that, I'm going to sidestep that, but I'm not really bothered, you will go and do a career that you're really passionate about, where in reality, I fell into construction because my dad worked in construction. Mm-hmm. Never ever thought growing up I would work in construction, but it was an opportunity where a door was opened within a business worked in. So was it really what I wanted to do? No, it was probably because an opportunity presented itself, and it was an element of conformity. I knew my mum and dad were happy. It was a big international business. It gave me security, financial security. But if I look back now, is it the right choice for me? Probably not. It was it's probably not the right alignment to my values and my principles as a business, and that's what made me leave 3 years down the line. So completely agree with that point. I think that is so important, isn't it, to kind of break from those norms and know what you're good at and know what you want to do, and actually have the confidence and the conviction to follow that through.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that it's also the other thing as well, what I've also learned from, life coach when I was, one of the roles where I was really, really struggling, just to sort of, identify, with the whole purpose of, what we were doing. And then she said to me, you have to see, or is actually the values of your senior managers, is that aligning with you? And initially I thought this is just some kind of like life coaching fluff, but it's like one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, in that space of, as in life coaching, and it's so very true. And it just didn't, after some serious analysis, it just simply didn't. And that's why, like, on a soul level, on a psychological level, what their sort of purpose or importance was, I actually didn't care about, right? And yeah.
Completely agree. That's why I left my previous business. It was a bit, I literally joined it thinking the values aligned, but actually over time those microcultures came in and was delivering a message about a redundancy that I knew I just didn't believe in. And it wasn't a moral crusade principle. It was actually fundamentally that I didn't agree with what they were doing. And I think if you've got to deliver those messages and in a position where you've given that seniority in that position, then actually you've got alignment 100%, because otherwise you go to bed and think, what am I doing? Why am I doing this job? So for me, quite a quick transition for me to leave, but sometimes you need that spotlighting, don't you? And you need a coach to actually say this is a disalignment and this is potentially what's at play. So completely agree with that. Just to finalize, I think it's been a fantastic conversation, thoroughly enjoyed it. Recommended reads. Obviously, you mentioned the book that you went to read in Zurich in the bookshop. Is there anything, another sort of book that you've read through your career coaching conversations that you've had?
So I would definitely say I love Brendon Burchard. I mean, he is, because when I got into the whole, motivational speaking, and that you can really rewire your brains and you can really change your destiny and whatever. That was sort of, 10, 12 years ago. And I originally started listening to the likes of Brian Tracy, Eat That Frog, the book that talks about eat the task that do the task in the morning that you hate the most and don't procrastinate. And obviously also Jack Canfield, sort of the forefathers of motivational speaking and transformation and career and all of that. But I really, really love Brendon Burchard, and his book that's called High Performance Habits: How Extraordinary People Become That Way. That is really sort of you can call it transformation, but just high performance, Bible, so to speak. And of course, high performance doesn't mean that you become a CEO and an athlete at the same time, but it's just it's about how do you maintain the level of discipline and enthusiasm, especially actually when the going gets tough. And he's done a lot of studies, extensive studies, people in the workplace or people who run their own companies, but athletes or actors or politicians. So really, really across the spectrum. I highly recommend it.
Super. We'll be sure to put the link in our podcast. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and it's been lovely to speak to you. And we'll be sure to link your Instagram as well onto our podcast. Thank you ever so much, Isabelle.
Yes, likewise. It was really, really fantastic. And thank you so much, Michelle.
No worries. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye then. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. We rely heavily on word of mouth, so if you found value in this episode, please hit subscribe and share it with family and friends. If you'd like to find out a bit more about us, you can find us on our Facebook group, Pair Entrepreneurs Club, or alternatively on Instagram, PairEntrepreneurs_club. We hope you have a great week and we look forward to talking to you next time.